Nobody dies at Disneyland, right? There's been no recorded deaths in Disneyland, regardless of people passing away inside the parks. This is because they do not declare anyone dead until they are off the premises. They do this, 1, to avoid bad publicity, and 2, to keep the most magical place on Earth the most magical place on Earth. Today we're going to be talking about 5 deaths that have happened inside the Disneyland parks from 1974 all the way to this year. Yes, this year. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first case you may have heard of if you do any searching into Disney deaths. This is the story of Deborah Stone. It's said that Deborah Stone was actually the first employee to pass away inside the parks in the 19 years that it had been open at the time. At just 18 years old, she had just graduated and had got her dream job to work at Disneyland. The attraction America Sands had been brought to the Disney park in 1974. The ride was 24 minutes long, which is crazy to think about actually, because no rides are that long anymore. And it featured singing robotic animals, so think Chuck E. Cheese, Five Nights at Freddy's. Those things are terrifying.
America's first popular song. And that's what this show is all about. America's music.
And had multiple rotating stages. So in this theater of multiple rotating stages, her job was to be on the left side of the stage, basically just greeting people and saying goodbye when they left. While the nighttime show was on at roughly 10:30 p.m., Deborah got stuck in between the rotating stages, and being unable to free herself, got crushed to death. I cannot even imagine the pain of that. That's terrifying. Have you heard this case before? I've definitely heard this one quite a few times. The next case is on Brandon Zucker. Mickey's Toontown opened in 1988 and it was inspired by the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So of course, in January 1994, they opened a ride inspired by Roger Rabbit called the Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. You board these 2-seater yellow cabs and they take you through this little cartoon land. The cabs rotate, and in a part of the ride, you can actually take control of the wheel and spin it yourself. On September 22nd, 2000, Brandon and his family were at the Disneyland park. The family went on this Toontown ride, and his mother, brother, and himself were in the first car. He was the last in the cart, so he was positioned right at the opening of the ride where you board, and the cast member didn't properly check if the safety bar was down and locked in place before the ride started. So at one point in the ride, as the car was spinning, as you probably could have guessed, Brandon fell out. Without even having enough time to scream for help, he was ran over by the car behind him. And to make the situation even more tragic, the people inside of that cart was his father and his grandmother. Everyone was screaming, his mother, his father, just yelling for help and to stop the ride. Brandon got pinned underneath the car and was dragged about 10 feet, and his body was folded in half. Miraculously, he was still alive. He experienced extreme physical trauma to his body, including a ruptured diaphragm, liver, and spleen. When the ride crushed Brandon, he also went into cardiac arrest, which resulted in brain damage. He was in and out of hospitals battling his brain injury, and from that day forward, he would never speak or walk again. 8 years later, at 13 years old, he passed away in his mother's arms at the Children's Hospital in Orange County on the 26th of January in 2009. Since then, Disney has put an actual door on the car and sensors in the front of the ride. It's just devastating that this had to happen before a door was put on the ride. Like, come on. And I don't understand why the smallest rider was on the end of the ride. Like, why was he not placed in the middle? Why was his mother not sat at the end where the opening was of the cart, you know? It's just devastating. And the employee should have checked that the bar was locked in place. Like, that's just standard. He was so little. He had so much life ahead of him. I'm glad that he at least had 8 more years with them, but he was in and out of hospitals the whole time. Like, that's awful. Cannot imagine how his parents feel. The next case is on Marcelo Torres. On the 5th of September 2003, tragedy struck on the Thunder Mountain roller coaster, which sadly led to the death of 22-year-old Marcelo Torres. This situation should have never happened. It could have been easily avoided, as with most of these cases, if not all. Marcelo had a passion for animation all his life, which led him to study at Brooks College in Long Island, California to become an animator. So cool, so cool. Here he met his business associate and best friend. On September 5th, 2003, Marcelo and his best friend went to Disneyland along with a couple other care of their good friends. The group arrived early in the morning at the parks and went on a few other attractions before deciding to go on the big Thunder Mountain roller coaster. This Western-themed ride goes up to 58 kilometers an hour and has a track length of 2,671 feet. It's always been one of Disneyland's most famous rides since it opened back in 1979. It's easily one of my favorites. It doesn't have any big drops or anything like that. I'm not a fan of those. Just has a lot of little dips and a lot of sharp turns. There's a total of 5 carts plus the locomotive, aka the train at the front of the car, which is not something you can ride, it's just for looks. Each cart has 3 benches plus the safety bar in front. Marcelo was sitting next to his bestie in the very first cart. The safety bar lowered and the ride began. Not far into the ride, the train at the very front of the ride derailed just before getting into the tunnel. This caused the train to take a nosedive, sending the back of the train upwards and hitting the roof of the tunnel, and it came crashing down onto the first cart. The force of the impact crushed the first cart along with Marcelo, crushing his chest and pinning his body to the seat. He was still alive, but he could not move from the seat. Despite the paramedics' efforts to remove him from the ride, he passed away on the scene. 10 others were injured during this accident, some able to free themselves, and others had to be rushed to the hospital. Marcelo's best friend says the last thing he could remember was, quote, "All of a sudden I heard something really loud and shaky. I told myself this isn't normal. I really thought it was a dream. I had 4 flashes, like I was in and out. I fainted, then woke up and fainted again. I saw Marcelo unconscious, then my 2 other friends. It was a blur." Like, could you imagine losing your best friend like that? You're going to the happiest place on earth together for one of the best days of your life. The memories were going to be cherished forever, and then they end up losing their life right next to you. I cannot even imagine how traumatic that would be. Me personally, I would never even want to go back to the happiest place on earth. It would be hard for me to step inside Disneyland again. The ride was then closed down for investigation, and some shocking things came to light. Thunder Mountain had been experiencing issues weeks before leading up to the September 5th date of this incident, which, get this, was known by Disney. It was known by the mechanics and the ride operators. Just 3 days before the incident, the maintenance team had actually replaced an unstopped wheel on the ride, but didn't properly tighten the bolts, which resulted in a warning yellow light on the ride, which was still very much on the day this all occurred. But ride operators claimed they didn't know what the light meant, so they just continued on letting people ride this roller coaster as if nothing was wrong. What? 2 years later, the family of Marcelo sued Disney, and after settling, they donated $500,000 to Brooks College to provide scholarships for aspiring animators just like their son. Now, these last 2 cases actually happened this year. I randomly came across the stories on YouTube Shorts today as I'm filming this, which inspired this whole video. So this one was very recent, just this summer actually. This is the case of Bonnie Lear. Disney cast member Bonnie had worked at the Disney parks for 24 years. That is crazy, that's almost my whole life. She worked as an administrator for Disney's Club 33. Club 33 is an exclusive members-only dining club at Disneyland, and it's located right above the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. Bonnie hopped in the golf cart. She was in the rear-facing seat on this brand new cart on the way to her shift, and the driver was driving recklessly, which led to her falling off and hitting her head. First responders rushed to the park at around 11:30 a.m. and discovered she had fallen off when the cart hit a bump. Ray Delgado, a fellow cast member, had said she went out to reach for the handrail, it gave way, and when they hit a bump, she fell out. She was taken to a local hospital with severe head injury and a fractured skull, which unfortunately could not be fixed during a surgery. 2 days later, on Friday, she lost her life at 60 years old. According to cast members, they were told by the resort managers that they were not able to speak on this. They had to stay quiet on the whole situation, which does not surprise me one bit, because remember, no one dies inside the parks. That's really, really sad. They lost a gem of a human for sure. 24 years with Disneyland, that's a long time. She started working at the parks when I was 1 year old. That's crazy. And last but not least, Caleb Graves. Now this just happened in September, just last month. 33-year-old Caleb Graves was a Georgetown Law School graduate who had a huge love for running and Disney. With nearly 18,000 followers on TikTok, Caleb was a beloved creator in the Disney community who documented his love for all things Disney related, including his excitement for Disney's 2024 half marathon that he was taking part in. Now this was nothing new for him. He ran marathons in both Disneyland and Disney World.
Half marathon is done. I'm in the recovery area with Mai and Conso, half marathon medal. Overall, a pretty good race.
So he wasn't a rookie, but just a day before the half marathon took place, he actually posted a TikTok video and he expressed worry due to his struggle with heat exhaustion.
I'm marginally worried now. I have maybe some susceptibility to heat because I was outside for like 20 minutes walking my dog. And then I came in, and then like 10 minutes after I got back in, I just passed out. Just fell asleep, no control over my body. It was heat exhaustion because it's only happened once to me before. I don't know what that's up for, what's going on.
Ending the video by stating,
but I really hope I get through the race tomorrow morning. The fact that it's early will help me out because it's not cute to just, lose control of your body and just fall asleep like that.
Really hope I end up getting through the race tomorrow morning. That is a huge red flag. If you're passing out from being outside in the sunshine for 20 minutes just walking your dog, I would not run a half marathon in the heat the very next day. I get that he was excited because you train for this, it's Disney, but your body is telling you no. Truthfully, if I was in his position, I probably would have gone through with it as well. I can be really good at preaching one thing, but do I listen to myself? No. Do I listen to my body when it's exhausted? Most of the time, no. I push through the workout. So as much as I wish I probably wouldn't do the same, I probably would have. So on the day of the race, the high was 108 degrees. What is that in Celsius? Sorry, I'm Canadian. Fahrenheit to Celsius. There's no freaking way. 42! I'm sorry, I should have converted this before I ended up filming. 42 Celsius? Girl, 30 is like hot for me. So I'm shocked that people were running in 42-degree weather. No, could not be me. Actually, no, I would not run the race. That's crazy. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I need a moment. When Caleb crossed the finish line, he was seen clutching his chest and went into cardiac arrest. Just an hour later, he was pronounced dead at the hospital. Now, Ashley Sheff had won the half marathon and she spoke out about the weather that day. How humid it was the day of the race, which made the race extra challenging, of course.
Definitely one of the highest humidity races I've ever experienced, and it definitely made for a very challenging day out there.
Now, let this be a lesson to everybody, including myself, Thalia. If your body is telling you something is wrong, it is so vital to listen to it. It's even more haunting to just be able to go back to his account and watch his videos even like one day prior to this, And I was watching some of his other content on TikTok. I was full on stalking him and he seems like such a nice guy, just living his best life, going to Disney, trying a whole bunch of different Disney foods and documenting it for all the fellow Disney lovers that follow him. All of these cases are so heartbreaking and it makes it especially eerie that they happened at the happiest place on earth. But it's an amusement park. Just like things like this happen at Six Flags, for example, Disney is no exception. You're putting people on rides. Things are gonna happen. My heart goes out to all of the friends and families of these people. I can't even imagine. But let's have a discussion in the comment section. Have you heard of any of these cases before? Which one stuck with you the most? Have you been to Disneyland or Disney World? And if you have, which ride is your favorite? I would love to know. Also, if you'd like more videos like this, please do leave it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments so I know to do another one of these. And thank you so much for watching. I love you guys so much. Stay safe, and I will see you in my next video.